The aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air as Chef Daniel carefully arranged a plate of steaming pasta on the counter. The soft hum of conversation echoed through the elegant restaurant, where candlelit tables and pristine white tablecloths set the mood for an unforgettable dining experience. It was just another busy evening at Le Grand Bistro, a well-known upscale restaurant tucked away in the heart of a bustling shopping mall. Daniel took a deep breath, wiping his hands on his apron as he observed the customers enjoying their meals. He had worked tirelessly to build a reputation here, ensuring that every dish leaving his kitchen was perfect. But tonight, something unusual caught his eye. Near the entrance, a woman had just walked in. She wasn't dressed in luxury brands like most of the other customers. Instead, she wore a simple jeans and jacket combo. What stood out the most, though, was the bright red hat perched atop her head. The bold white letters embroidered across it were unmistakable: MAGA. The moment she stepped inside, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Excuse me, ma'am." A young man in a neatly pressed uniform marched toward her. His name tag read, "Tyler, Mall Manager." His expression was one of sheer disapproval as he squared his shoulders and blocked the woman's path. "I'm sorry, but you can't be in here with that," he said, motioning toward her hat. The woman raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Is there a problem?" Tyler scoffed. "We have a strict policy against political attire in this mall. It makes other shoppers uncomfortable." A few nearby customers turned their heads, sensing the growing tension. Some whispered among themselves, while others pretended not to notice. Chef Daniel frowned, wiping his hands once more. He had seen all kinds of people walk through this mall, yet he had never heard of such a rule before. Something about this situation didn't sit right with him. The woman crossed her arms, her tone calm but firm. "I don't recall seeing any signs about a dress code. Are you saying I'm not allowed to shop here?" Tyler smirked, his confidence growing. "That's exactly what I'm saying. Now if you don't leave, I'll have to call security." "Chef." Daniel took a step closer, watching the scene unfold. The woman didn't argue, didn't yell. She simply smiled, as if she knew something no one else did. "Call them," she said smoothly. Tyler hesitated, caught off guard by her reaction. His smirk wavered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Fine," he huffed, pulling out his phone. "You'll regret wasting my time." At that moment, a silence spread across the room as the woman reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and sleek. A key card. And not just any key card. It bore the official logo of the mall's corporate headquarters. She held it up, just enough for Tyler to see, her smile never fading. "Actually," she said, tilting her head slightly, "I think you're the one who's going to regret this." Chef Daniel's eyes widened. Hush fell over the crowd as a realization dawned upon them. Who was this woman? And why did she have a key card that only the highest executives carried? Tyler's face drained of color as he took a step back. "Wait, who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman chuckled, finally removing her hat and tucking it under her arm. "The new owner of this mall," she said, her voice ringing clear across the restaurant. A stunned silence followed. Chef Daniel let out a low whistle, shaking his head in disbelief. He had a feeling things were about to get very, very interesting. Tyler took a step back, his hands trembling slightly as he stared at the woman in front of him. The new owner. That wasn't possible. He had just spoken to the mall's corporate office last week, and nothing had been mentioned about a change in ownership. And yet, the way she stood there, confident and unfazed, made it impossible to doubt her words. The restaurant fell into a heavy silence. Customers who had been pretending not to listen were now fully invested in the scene unfolding before them. Even the servers, who had been rushing between tables, had paused mid-step. Chef Daniel folded his arms, watching closely. He had worked in this mall for years, seen managers come and go, but this was something new. He could see the panic creeping into Tyler's expression, the way his mind was racing, searching for a way to regain control. I didn't mean any offense, Tyler stammered, his voice suddenly much softer. I was just following mall policies. It's nothing personal. The woman tilted her head slightly, her eyes cool and assessing. Following policies, she repeated. So tell me, where exactly in the mall's handbook does it say people can't wear hats? Tyler swallowed hard. Well, I mean, it's just, some things make other customers uncomfortable. The woman gave a small chuckle. Uncomfortable, she echoed, raising an eyebrow. Or is it just you who didn't like it? Tyler's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Chef Daniel smirked to himself. He could tell that Tyler was used to throwing his weight around, enjoying whatever little power he had over shoppers and store employees. But now, he had picked a fight with the wrong person. The woman slipped her keycard back into her pocket. What's your name? She asked. Tyler hesitated before answering. Tyler, he said quickly. She nodded slowly, as if committing it to memory. Tyler, she repeated. How long have you been working here? A year, he answered. And in that time, how many people have you kicked out for no real reason? Tyler's face turned red. I was just enforcing. She held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. You don't have to answer that. I think I already know. Chef Daniel let out a low whistle. This woman wasn't just standing up for herself. She was peeling Tyler apart layer by layer, exposing him in front of everyone. Tyler glanced around, realizing how many people were now watching. His confident posture had completely crumbled. Look, ma'am, Ms. Lawson. She corrected him. Evelyn Lawson. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some recognized the name immediately. Evelyn Lawson was known in the business world as a sharp, no-nonsense investor who had taken failing businesses and turned them into massive successes. The fact that she was now standing in the middle of the mall, wearing a simple outfit and a hat that had caused this entire scene, made everything even more surreal. Tyler ran a hand through his hair, clearly panicked. Ms. Lawson, I apologize for the misunderstanding. If I had known who you were, she narrowed her eyes. And that's exactly the problem, isn't it? Tyler froze. You're not sorry for what you did, Evelyn continued. You're just sorry you did it to the wrong person. The crowd murmured in agreement. Some nodded. Others exchanged knowing looks. Chef Daniel leaned against the counter, intrigued. This was getting better by the second. Evelyn glanced around, taking in the faces of the people watching. How many others has he treated like this? She asked. Not to Tyler, but to the people around her. There was a moment of hesitation, but then, slowly, voices started speaking up. I saw him throw out a teenager last week for wearing a band t-shirt, someone said. He gave me trouble for bringing my service dog in, even when I showed him the paperwork, another woman added. He's always got an attitude, an older man muttered. Acts like he owns the place. Tyler's face turned even redder. That's not true. I was just doing my job. Evelyn crossed her arms. Well, since I'm the new owner, I'll be taking a closer look at what your job actually includes. In fact, I think we'll have a little meeting about it first thing tomorrow morning. Tyler paled. Please, Ms. Lawson, Enough, she said firmly. Go home. We'll talk tomorrow. It wasn't an immediate firing, but everyone in the room could hear it. The end of his authority. Tyler looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew better than to push any further. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his head low, his hands clenched at his sides. As soon as he disappeared around the corner, the restaurant let out a collective breath. Quiet murmurs filled the space again. Evelyn turned toward the counter, her expression softening slightly. "What's good here?" she asked casually. Chef Daniel grinned. "After that performance, you deserve a feast. I'll make you something special." She chuckled. "I'll hold you to that." As Chef Daniel worked in the kitchen, carefully plating a dish worthy of the unexpected guest, he couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was just the beginning. Evelyn Lawson wasn't like other corporate owners who barely set foot in their own properties. She had walked in unnoticed, challenged the status quo, and left everyone, including the arrogant mall manager, reeling. If she ran the mall the way she had handled Tyler, big changes were coming. When he finally brought out the plate, a perfectly seared steak with roasted vegetables and a side of handmade pasta, Evelyn smiled. "Looks incredible," she said, picking up her fork. She took a bite, and her expression shifted to pure satisfaction. "You, chef, are an artist." Daniel chuckled. "Glad you think so. It's not every day I get to cook for a mall owner." She wiped her mouth with a napkin and leaned in slightly. "Not just an owner, a fixer." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Fixer?" Evelyn nodded. "I don't just buy businesses. I turn them around, and from what I saw tonight, this mall needs a serious reset." Before Daniel could respond, a hesitant voice interrupted. "Excuse me." "Ms. Lawson." They both turned to see a young woman standing near the table, wringing her hands nervously. She was one of the store employees, her uniform slightly wrinkled, her eyes darting around as if she wasn't sure whether she should be speaking up. Evelyn set down her fork. "Yes?" The girl hesitated, then took a deep breath. I just wanted to say thank you for what you did. Tyler, he's been treating us terribly for months. Not just customers, employees too. People were afraid to speak up because they thought they'd get fired." A few more employees had gathered nearby, nodding in agreement. One of them, an older man from the janitorial staff, spoke up next. "He cut our hours when we asked for new equipment, said we should be grateful. We even had jobs." Another employee added. "He made up rules just to get rid of people he didn't like. And if anyone complained, he'd find a way to make them quit." Daniel watched as Evelyn took it all in, her face unreadable. Then, after a moment, she gave a small nod. "I appreciate you telling me," she said. "I need to know what's really happening here if I'm going to fix it." The employees exchanged glances, as if they weren't sure whether to believe her. They had heard promises before, seen new management come and go, but nothing had ever changed. Evelyn seemed to sense their doubt. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few buttons, and then looked up. "Starting tomorrow, there will be a direct complaint line, anonymous if you prefer. Any issues, big or small, report them. I don't want to hear about problems when it's too late to fix them." A spark of hope flickered in the employees' eyes. "And Tyler?" one of them asked cautiously. Evelyn smirked. "Let's just say I have a feeling he won't be returning after our meeting." A wave of relief washed over the group. One by one, they murmured their thanks before slowly dispersing, whispering excitedly among themselves. Daniel shook his head in admiration. "You're not wasting any time, huh?" Evelyn took another bite of her food. "No point in waiting. If something's broken, you fix it." Just then, a loud commotion erupted near the entrance. A security officer was walking quickly toward them, followed by none other than Tyler, his face red with anger. "I need to speak with you right now." he demanded, pointing a finger at Evelyn. The restaurant fell silent again. Evelyn didn't even flinch. She took her time, dabbing her mouth with a napkin before finally looking up. "Tyler, I thought I told you to go home." His hands curled into fists. "You think you can just walk in here and ruin my life?" he spat. "I've worked here for a year, and I won't let you take that away from me." Evelyn tilted her head. "You took it away from yourself." Tyler scoffed. "This isn't fair. I was just doing my job." "No, you were abusing your job," Evelyn corrected him. Her voice remained calm, but there was a finality to it that made it clear there was no room for argument. "And if you think I'm going to keep someone like you in charge of people who actually work hard, then you don't understand business at all." Tyler's face twisted in frustration, but he had no comeback. The security officer cleared his throat. "Sir, I think it's best if you leave." For a moment, it looked like Tyler was going to argue, but then reality seemed to settle in. His shoulders slumped, his confidence shattered. Without another word, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the restaurant. The tension in the air dissolved. Quiet applause broke out among the employees, still lingering nearby. Evelyn exhaled, shaking her head slightly. "Some people never learn." Daniel chuckled. "You handled that like a pro." Evelyn gave him a small smile. "I've dealt with worse." She picked up her fork again, but before taking another bite, she glanced around the restaurant, her expression thoughtful.